Direct versus indirect communication. So before we will tackle our video presentation about direct and indirect communication, we should tackle to all of you about the outline of our video presentation. First, define indirect and direct communication. Indirect communication, the speaker uses softer language and ambiguous words and relies on nonverbal cues, tone, and context to convey their meaning. While direct communication refers to a straightforward and clear exchange of information where the message is conveyed explicitly and without ambiguity. So the second outline is how direct and indirect communication affects people values. Misunderstanding direct communication is clear and straightforward, which can reduce misinterpretation, while indirect communication is more subtle and diplomatic, which can promote harmony but may lead to confusion. So conflict affect people values in direct communication and indirect communication. Indirect communication can be an effective way to resolve conflict quickly and accurately, while indirect communication can increase tensions and make conflict resolution more complex. Next is cultural considerations that can also affect people values indirect and indirect communication. The perception and effectiveness of direct versus indirect communication styles can be significantly influenced by cultural considerations. For example, direct communication styles are more commonly valued in Western cultures, while indirect communication styles are more commonly valued in Eastern cultures. So, naisipaywating ng cultural considerations daw is yung kada kultura natin is may iba-ibang paniniwala through communication man nga sa other country or other cultures na pinaniwalaan nila their communication is rude and straightforward, while other cultures is not rude man, it's been straightforward ka kasi and it's been useful and it's very kind daw sa iba, but sa other man it's rude talaga. So ang indirect man communication sa other cultures is mabuti kasi hindi mo dapat sinasabi yung dapat mo sabihin through respect man sa other cultures. So our third outline is advantages and disadvantages of direct and indirect communication. Advantages of direct communication can be clear and efficient, and it can reduce misinterpretation. It can also lead to better performance, organization, and workflow, while the disadvantages of direct communication can be perceived as rude, aggressive, or insensitive, which can lead to conflict, resentment, or misunderstanding. So the next is the advantages of indirect communication and the disadvantages of indirect communication. So a while ago I talked all about the advantages and disadvantages of direct communication. So the advantages of indirect communication can be subtle and diplomatic, which can help maintain harmony and avoid conflict, can be more acceptable and respectful in cultures where direct communication is considered rude or confrontational, while the disadvantages of indirect communication can be ineffective because it may not be clear what the speaker wants. It may rely to tone of voice, body language, and other factors to express intentions. So the fourth outline of our topic is the barriers of direct and indirect communication. So, ang nakapaloob sa barriers of direct and indirect communications is cultural diversity. Different cultures have different guiding principles that can make it difficult for people to understand each other. So, the next barriers of direct and indirect communication is body language. Can be barrier if it's misinterpreted or contradicts what's being said. For example, crossed arms can signal defensiveness. The third barrier is conflicting values. Different attitudes toward authority and hierarchy or conflicting norms for decision making can create communication challenges. The next outline of this topic is cultural examples that uses direct and indirect communication. Culture that uses direct communication. In United States, Americans often value straightforwardness and clarity. Phrases like "get to the point" reflect this preference. Example, in a business meeting, Americans might explicitly state disagreements or concerns with the proposal. Another culture that uses indirect communication is Japan. Japanese prioritizes harmony and avoiding confrontation. Indirect cues, body language, and context often carry more meaning than words. Example: instead of saying no directly, a Japanese person might say that it will be difficult, which implies refusal. The last outline of this topic is conflicting values, comparative analysis between direct and indirect communication. Clarity versus subtlety. Direct communication prioritizes clarity and explicitness. Messages are conveyed in a straightforward manner, leaving little room for misinterpretation. The value here is transparency and efficiency. A while ago, in direct communication, clarity versus subtlety, while in indirect communication emphasizes subtlety, nuance, and context. The next, conflicting values, is conflict. Indirect communicators may perceive indirect communicators as evasive or unclear. Indirect communicators may find direct communicators blunt or insensitive. Second is individualism versus collectivism. In direct communication, often associated with individualistic cultures, it values self expression, autonomy, and assertiveness. In indirect communication, common in collectivist cultures, it values group harmony, relationships, and social context. Communicators aim to avoid conflict and maintain positive group dynamics. Conflict in direct communicators may view indirect styles as overly cautious, while indirect communicators might see directness as self centered or disrespectful. The third one is efficiency versus relational sensitivity. In direct communication, focuses on getting to the point quickly and efficiently, especially task-oriented interactions. While efficiency versus relational sensitivity in indirect communication prioritizes relational sensitivity and considers the emotional impact of the message on the recipient. And the last topic that composes this outline of direct communication and indirect communication is conflict. Direct communicators may feel frustrated by perceived inefficiency, whereas indirect communicators may feel hurt or disregarded by abruptness. So before we end our video presentation topic, direct communication and indirect communication, we prepared an situational scenario about direct and indirect communication.